There is a legitimate battle for the Big Ten. Welcome to the Voice of College Football as we discuss, debate, and analyze the game we all love each and every day. Live streams, call-in shows, fresh content every day on our 24 channels. Please like the video. Do it right now. Please like the video. Share the videos out on social media because if you enjoy the content, others will as well. Even if you don't agree with me, please hit the like button or hit the unlike button, whatever you want to do. Just let people know that we're talking college football here every day. Let's look at the Big Ten and our power rankings. And I made the statement off the top that there is a legitimate battle for the Big Ten. Ohio State has owned this conference, much like Oklahoma in the Big 12 and Clemson in the ACC. Look at Buckeye dominance since basically 2010. Actually, let's go back to 2004. Ohio State beat Michigan, sending the Wolverines to the Rose Bowl with a double-digit loss to Ohio State. That is the last time that a acting coach, a set coach, permanent coach at Ohio State lost to Michigan. The Wolverines won its last Big Ten championship in 2004. Ohio State under Jim Tressel won it or shared it in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. In 2010, Ohio State only lost one game and did share the Big Ten championship, though. It was an interesting year. The final year prior to the implementation of the Big Ten championship game in 2011, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin tied for the Big Ten championship. Then in 2011, of course, that was the Luke Fickell year between Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. The Buckeyes went 6-6. Take that year out of the equation. I know that the year counts, but just to prove a point, Ohio State's worst record in the Big Ten since 2004, 7-1. 7-1 in conference play. The Buckeyes have completely dominated this conference for going on 20 years. Since Urban Meyer took over, they basically don't lose games in the Big Ten, maybe roughly one a year. Okay. Even the years that they've not won the Big Ten championship, most people have considered them to be the best team. 2015, 2016, the playoffs and the bowl games and the postseason games pretty much proved out that Ohio State was still the best team. But now here we are in 2021. And even though Ohio State has yet to play a game in the Big Ten, if they don't improve considerably, then one of the helmets behind me or somebody else is going to take over the Big Ten Conference. Let's look at the power rankings as it stands right now because I think there's legitimately 5 or 6 teams that could win the Big Ten. Now, again, we are judging this based on non-conference performance. We have very few conference games to go on. We've got a few coming up this week. Of course, we've already had a couple big ones. Let's look at the power rankings. I am curious to get your thoughts about the Big Ten race. Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, of course, in play. And because there are very few conference games, even the likes of Minnesota, we don't know. They went out to Colorado and gave up 63 yards of total offense over the weekend and beat the Buffs 30-0. All right, let's check it out with Northwestern. Yes, Northwestern, the team that went to the Big Ten championship game last year, the team out of the West that has represented that division 2 of the last 3 years, it's the worst team in the Big Ten right now. Northwestern is 1-2. They beat Indiana State 24-6. In their other 2 meaningful games, they got blasted by Michigan State. Not a close game, 38-21, and it wasn't that close at Ryan Field on opening weekend Friday night. And then this past weekend, Northwestern went to Duke, and they were down 30-7 at halftime. They lost the game 30-23. Starting quarterback Hunter Johnson, the Clemson transfer, was benched after throwing 3 interceptions. And then we had Andrew Marty come into the game and lead some scoring drives, but he got hurt. Ryan Helinski, the South Carolina transfer, came in, and Northwestern is a mess right now under Pat Fitzgerald. Turning the ball over, getting whipped up front. They never have playmakers on the outside. Northwestern's the worst team in the Big Ten right now entering conference play. They do play Ohio University, and that is not a guaranteed win for Northwestern taking on the Bobcats this weekend. At number 13, we've got Nebraska. This may point to the strength of the Big Ten right here. Nebraska, number 13 right now, had lost to Illinois, played decent games against Fordham and Buffalo, but what does that mean? And then they go to Norman last week, and I'm not going to say they almost won the game, but it was a one-score game, and they legitimately competed in that game until 5 minutes left to play, and Oklahoma put it away with a ground attack drive in the final 5 minutes. Nebraska goes to 2-2 with the loss against Oklahoma, supposed to be a top 5 team in the country. They have yet to prove it, but the national rankings have Oklahoma in the top 5 in the country, and Nebraska went and played within 23-16 as a 22-point underdog. So maybe Nebraska's got a pulse this year. Maybe they'll show us something in conference play. It all starts for the Huskers in conference play. They get back into it after the loss to Illinois in week 0, taking on Michigan State on the road. All right, at number 12, we've got Illinois at 1-3. And, of course, I am taking the Illinois win over Nebraska head-to-head into account here, because otherwise Nebraska looks like a better team right now a couple weeks later than Illinois. The Illini are 1-3. They played relatively well in winning that Week 1 game against Nebraska. They're 1-0 in the conference. That's the one positive. But since then, lost to Texas San Antonio, went to Virginia, and just got annihilated. 42-14 in that game, gave up long touchdown plays in that game, which, ironically, Illinois then showed us something last weekend, almost beat Maryland. Lost on a last-second field goal to the Terps. So that was somewhat impressive that Illinois bounced back and gave a pretty good Maryland team a fight to the end, 20-17, and shut down, to a certain extent, that Maryland passing attack, only giving up 21 points. So Illinois at 1-3 steps back into Big Ten play, taking on Purdue as a double-digit underdog this weekend in West Lafayette. That's our number 12 team. Our number 11 team is Purdue. Purdue's 2-1, and there's a gap here based on play thus far, because Purdue's played much better than number 11 versus Illinois' number 12. The Boilers are 2-1. They've got 2 wins, not necessarily against the best competition in the world. They annihilated UConn, as everybody does, and they also beat Oregon State in a competitive game in West Lafayette. But this past weekend, they went to South Bend, took on Notre Dame, and now they've got a quarterback situation that they've had on their hands for a couple of years under Jeff Brom, concerning Jack Plummer and Aiden O'Connell, who came into the game once Plummer was benched. And O'Connell comes into the game, makes some plays, and Purdue stayed within a touchdown of Notre Dame before losing 27-13. So Notre Dame, our number 11 team in the Big Ten. At number 10, we've got Indiana, 1-2, but they play 2 really good football teams in Iowa, getting blasted 34-6 in Iowa City on opening day. And Cincinnati this past weekend, as the Hoosiers led it 14-0. They also, late in the game with 2 or 3 minutes left, were losing 30-24, about to take the lead inside the Cincinnati 10. They fumbled and then gave up another touchdown to lose 38-24. So Indiana off to a rough start record-wise at 1-2. And they've got a date with Western Kentucky this weekend. Indiana at number 10 in our rankings. Power ranking team number 9 is Minnesota. The Golden Gophers just laid in on Colorado as a 2 to 3 point underdog this weekend, 30-0. They only gave up 63 yards of total offense in the game. Minnesota's got a decent effort against Ohio State, 45-31 losers on opening night. And didn't have the best game against Miami of Ohio, taking a 21-3 lead and almost blowing it 31-25. But Minnesota's our number 9 team in the Big Ten at 2-1. And the Gophers take on Bowling Green on Saturday. At number 8, we've got a Wisconsin team that's 1-1. They, of course, dominated the first half against Penn State, and really their defense dominated the game. But they blew a coverage, gave up a touchdown play to Sean Clifford and company in the second half, and that really lost the game for Wisconsin. They made red zone errors on offense in that game, and then turned around and laid on the defense against Eastern Michigan, only giving up one first down until the final drive of the game. Wisconsin's 1-1. They've got Notre Dame coming up. This is a tremendous matchup at Soldier Field. So Wisconsin right now at 1-1, our number 8 team in the power rankings. I believe the Badgers to be much better than that, but for right now, Wisconsin at number 8. 7th in the Big Ten, the Buckeyes of Ohio State, 2-1. Opening night winners against Minnesota 45-31 when they unleashed the offense in the second half, but got torn up on the ground, and that really got torn up on the ground by the Oregon Ducks the next week, 35-27, 35-28, and then an unimpressive showing against Tulsa, in which they only led by a touchdown late in the game before pulling away 41-20. The Buckeyes take on Akron as a 2-1 football team and number 7 in our power rankings. At number 6, I've got Rutgers, undefeated under Greg Schiano, ripped Temple 61-14. Only beat Syracuse 17-7, but that's an ACC foe in which they only gave up 7 points on the road. And then they blasted Delaware this past weekend, 45-10. Okay, an upgrade in opponent this weekend at Michigan. That's going to tell us a whole lot about Rutgers, whether they're going to be the team that we most likely think them to be. Blast the non-conference inferior foes, have a rough time in the Big Ten, but they get a chance against the team that they took to double overtime last year in Piscataway. Rutgers at Michigan this weekend, and the Scarlet Knights could go to 4-0 as our number 6 team in the Big Ten. At number 5, I got Maryland. The Terps are 3-0. Impressive win against West Virginia. The Mountaineers just beat Virginia Tech this past weekend. They beat somebody called Howard 62-0. And then, of course, the aforementioned Illinois game in which the Terps survived 20-17. Maryland with one more non-conference game as they take on Kent State this weekend. The Terps at 3-0, much like, 6 teams in the Big Ten right now are 3-0, and I've got Maryland at number 5. Also at 3-0 in the Big Ten would be Michigan, stepping into conference play against Rutgers at home. Western Michigan, they blasted them 47-14. Then they took out Washington with a great defensive display, 31-10, and more great defense, plus the big-time offense against Northern Illinois, a team that beat Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech took Clemson to the wire. If you want to play that game, Clemson or Michigan is 3-0, and our number 4 team in the Big Ten as the Wolverines take on Rutgers. Interested to see what Michigan State continues to do. They took a huge step in going to Miami, defeating a talented Miami team 38-17. It was a close game until the midway through the fourth quarter, and Sparty took over, hit on some big plays, and broke open a close game. Impressive performance by Michigan State in the heat and humidity in Miami, 38-17 after defeating Youngstown State. Not a big deal there, but consider they did it the right way. They put up 35 points in the first half, dominated the game, and put away Youngstown State by halftime. Of course, Michigan State opened the season on a Friday night, impressive fashion against Northwestern, with Kenneth Walker getting off to a tremendous start in these 3 games. Sparty's 3-0. They take on Nebraska in the Big Ten opener, and they are the number 3 team in our Big Ten power rankings. At number 2, I got Penn State. Penn State may just be the best team in the Big Ten. They have beaten 3 quality opponents. They went to Madison, looked horrible offensively in the first half. They hung on defensively, kept stopping Wisconsin in the red zone, and then they finally broke through in the second half. The defense forced turnovers. The offense finally made some plays. They beat Wisconsin. That was a monumental win for James Franklin on the road against a top 10 team at the time. Then, of course, Ball State, a good MAC team. They blasted them 43-14. And then the tremendous whiteout win over Auburn over the weekend. We'll see how good Auburn is. Probably the 6th, 7th, 8th best team in the SEC. So that was a difficult game against Auburn. But the Nittany Lions win it to go to 3-0. They've got Villanova to conclude their non-conference schedule this weekend. And finally, the number 1 team in the Big Ten, despite the offensive issues, I believe that they're somewhat playing the offense to the scoreboard and the game situation. This team is better offensively than they've shown. Are they a juggernaut, prolific offense? No, but better than what they've shown. Number one team right now in the Big Ten is Iowa because they've posted the best 2 victories basically in the nation. Beating Indiana by 4 scores, beating Iowa State by 3 scores in the fourth quarter before winning on the road 27-17, and then they blasted Kent State this past weekend 30-7. Iowa at 3-0, the number one team in the Big Ten. Again, our rundowns. Iowa's number 1 right now in our power rankings. Penn State at number 2, Michigan State 3, Michigan 4, Maryland 5, Rutgers 6, Ohio State 7. Wisconsin's number 8, Minnesota 9, Indiana 10, Purdue 11, Illinois 12, Nebraska 13, and Northwestern 14, with some interesting Big Ten games coming up this weekend. Most notably, we've got, of course, Nebraska taking on Michigan State, and Purdue and Illinois. Leave your comments below on our Big Ten rankings. We will run through the rest of the conferences soon, right here at the Voice of College Football. See you next time.